we're just now entering into an age where we can manipulate DNA and plant genomes.
Right.
So we're going to corrupt the whole world just as it was in the days of Noah. And that's that illicit knowledge that is being wrapped up.
Yeah.
So
the double
one would
helix,
also expect that we ought to see, we ought to see giants, or the descendants of giants at least, in control in the end time. And I don't rule out any of the possibilities. I certainly do know that the descendants of the giants want to bring about the end of the age and a rendezvous with destiny. But we have to be open to the fact that not all angels went to the abyss for their crimes against humanity and the crimes against creation.
Yeah.
And that many of them are still out there, and that they could at any time decide to violate the laws of creation again to create new giants. And maybe they already have and we don't know about it. I mean, I'm speculating there, obviously, but they would go to the abyss until those in the abyss are let loose, which happens in the last 7 years. So no matter what, they're coming back again, and they're probably trying to do the same thing. But you also have, what's interesting for these giants is you have all of these giants who died. Then there's two sets again. You have ones that are in the abyss, along the sides of the abyss, in the prisons, as Ezekiel 32 talks about, and other chapters.
Yeah.
And then you have the ones like Legion that are still roaming, right? And so if you link up, and I have a great document on this in terms of how do we know that the demons are the bodiless spirits of Nephilim. I walk through that scripturally in the Bible for people. What we're taught is that this is a counterfeit spirit out of the book of Enoch, but in the Bible, they're evil spirits, right? And they're not permitted to go to sleep, and they're not permitted to go to heaven. And all humans go to sleep until the resurrection sequence kicks in. And everybody has their place depending on what they've done and what they believe. So you have these giants that are roaming the earth, and Jesus describes them as being in dry places. So like they're thirsty, they need a place of rest. And the only place that they can have a place of rest and to interact in the world is to possess a human, but it's not a symbiotic relationship. They're suppressing the host. There's a war going on all the time, and that's why in the horror movies, we get these contortions and horrible things that the body takes shapes on and things like that, because there's a war going on. And for these bodiless spirits, they'll need what they call an oiketerion, a dwelling place for the spirit to interact into the world where they don't have this war going on. So they're going to need technology to create clones or robots or computers or whatever for them to try and interact in the world. So we could see them reappear that way. And if people want to know where I get the term oiketerion from, we have a body, soul, and a spirit. Okay. And the body and the soul are on the earth, and I also have a great document for people on this if they want. I've got lots of documents. If you want to get a hold of me through my website, ask me whether I got a document on this subject. If I got it, I'll send it to you. I do it at no charge.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And so
I'll take that.
Spirit comes from heaven. The soul and the body are of the physical world. And the soul is the life of the physical world that meshes with the spirit from heaven. So in Jude 1:6, the angels leave their habitat. And habitation is the Greek word oiketerion, which means a dwelling place for the spirit. And so they need to interact in the physical world, a body and a soul, right? They need an oiketerion. So they take a physical form, and we have a physical form. That's how you pass on this DNA and those supernatural traits to your offspring if you have sex. And that we also get oiketerion in 2 Corinthians 5 with the house in heaven, which is that dwelling place for the spirit, which is why Jesus says he has many rooms in his mansion in the house in heaven, right? It's the allegory that's perfectly consistent. And so they need this oiketerion, this body and this soul, to enter into, or it's going to be a symbiotic, will be a symbiotic relationship. The demons I'm talking about to interact at the end of the age, and I think we're going to see a lot of that as well, because they have to be part of it. And in fact, we even get the term demons coming out of the mouth of the false prophet and of the Antichrist and of Satan, that's going to lead the kings and deceive them and do miraculous things to bring them to war. And so I make a clear distinction between demon and fallen angel. And a fallen angel can possess a human too, but it's not called possession. Typically, it is a symbiotic relationship because they're going to add some value and wisdom and not trying, they don't need to be there. So that's called an avatar and an avatara. So the avatar is the angel, the avatara is the recipient. So Buddha would have been an avatar of Vishnu, which is where he got his wisdom from, which is the incarnation aspect of occultism that they want us to think that Jesus did. A whole different process where you had the oiketerion prepared through Mary for his spirit to go in. There's no sharing of another spirit in there. It's the word made flesh. So that's another rabbit hole we don't have time to go into. But to continue on with what we're saying is that you could expect Antichrist to be an avatar to get his power from the dragon in the end time that Revelation 13 talks about. And we get an example of this biblically. This isn't just a polytheist doctrine. So the first example is at the time of the crucifixion, just before, and the betrayal of Jesus. You have Judas, who is going to betray Jesus, but he's struggling. Right? And Satan enters into him to give him that strength to carry it out to the end. It's kind of like the harem anathema that the angels take, the oath to carry the end, right? When they to create the Nephilim and to try and have humankind destroyed from the face of the earth and led into nothingness. And so there may be another one in the Bible as well. In in Genesis 3. So some people believe that Satan deceived Eve, and had sex with and as an extension of that, had sex with Eve to produce Cain. And I cover off in the Gnostic belief in the Bible, and I'm open to the idea. I just can't do it. I can't prove it scripturally, and we actually have scripture that says otherwise. But here's the thing. Satan, when he had sex, if he had sex with Eve, didn't go to the abyss, although he will at the end of the last 7 years. The other fallen angels who had sex, they went to the abyss. So that's a bit of an enigma. And the Nakash, or the Nahash, as it's more properly pronounced in Hebrew, the serpent is the one who gets punished. He loses his arms. He loses his legs. He loses his speech. He loses his intelligence. Satan doesn't. And so I think it's very possible that this Nahash was a very obviously intelligent being before, which is kind of unaccounted for in the Bible.
Like a dragon.
And that, like a dragon. And a most preferred species, the fiery serpent-faced angel, the dragons, the heavenly dragons, and that Satan probably either coached the serpent or entered into him to deceive Eve, not necessarily to have a child, because we have Genesis 4, which gives the genealogies as to who they're born from. And if people think, well, and you can get into the argument as to, well, but you could look at Cain as being acquired as what it means, and Cain is very close to the word kana, which means acquired. But that's the same language that is used to produce Enoch and the other sons of Cain. And it's the same language used, exact words that are used in the birth of Seth. And then you get the Sethian lineage in the next chapter, in chapter 5. And so that you would have to say by extension, then all of those were giants, because it's the exact same language in Hebrew and expressed the same way in English. So anyway, I'm not going to get into the serpent seed document in detail,